My Adventures with Superman was back again this week on Adult Swim for a brand new episode entitled Kiss Kiss Fall Into a Portal. I'm Gabe Jewell, and this is a video series where I give my thoughts and feelings on the episode that was, while also shouting out any comic book Easter eggs or references I can find. And oh man, there were so many of them this week, so let's not waste any more time, let's get to it. So then, picking up directly from where last week left off, Clark finally opened up to Lois and Jimmy about his double life as Superman, and to really help explain his situation, he even takes them back to Smallville so they can see the craft that brought him to Earth, though admittedly, he doesn't really have much new information to share about the mysteries behind why he's on Earth or even what planet he's from originally. Also, now that Clark and Lois are being 100% Oprah honest with each other, it means that they can finally take their romantic relationship to the next level. Yes, that's right, they planned their first date, but because Clark is Clark, he has to super fixate and try and plan everything down to the last minuscule detail to make sure it's absolutely perfect. The truly funny part is that Jimmy learns that Lois is doing basically the same thing. She has an entire new string theory board out trying to break the story that is Superman, where he's from, what is his true past, figuring that it would be the best gift in the world to give to Clark. In fact, she gets so caught up into her own research she doesn't even remember to dress for her upcoming date. Man, these two obsessive compulsives, Clark and Lois, really do deserve each other, don't they? Of course, it wouldn't be a superhero story if a regular date didn't get interrupted by some outside force, and in this case, Clark's plans are shattered by the appearance of Mr. Mxyzptlk, Mr. Mxyzptlk. I've heard it pronounced both ways. Let's just call him Mixie for the rest of the episode because the show does. Now, in the comics, Mixie was an all-powerful imp from the fourth dimension who would regularly come to Earth to mess with Superman pretty much just because he was bored or because he wanted to prove that he was superior to the Man of Steel. It was such a winning concept even in the Golden Age that we would continue to see the Man of Steel match wits with a creature whose reality warping powers put him basically on the same level as Superman still today in the comics. FYI, in the comics, the only way you could defeat Mixie is by getting him to say his own name backwards, which is Keltipsy-Zim, in case you're wondering. My Adventures with Superman kinda dispenses with that last part and instead chooses to give Mixie one hell of an overhaul. First off, his design is absolutely amazing. It looks like something that came straight from Akira Toriyama's sketchbook. I mean, come on, you can't tell me you can't see this dude hanging out right next to Supreme Kai and the whole gang, because I know I can. They also seek to update the ways in which Mixie chooses to mess with Superman. You see, he doesn't actually come to him as an antagonist right away. Instead, he claims to work for a multiversal peacekeeping organization and that he needs Superman's help to try and rescue Lois from a group of villains who have her kidnapped. Also, because Mixie is a multiversal being in this show, he has an acute knowledge of a bunch of different Supermen from different animated universes from all across history. We get a reference to the Fleischer era, the 90s Timiverse era. It's all in there, man, and it's all great. David Arrigo Jr. does Mixie's voice in this show, and he does an excellent job capturing that madcap, old-timey cartoon energy that's so important to a character like this. In fact, this actor is set up to have a huge year in voice acting because he also landed two of the biggest roles on that Tiny Toons revival. Of course, Mixie isn't telling the whole truth to Superman, and we quickly see why, because Lois didn't actually get kidnapped. She was, however, picked up by, get this, the League of Loises, a group of multiversal peacekeepers made up of different versions of herself from other Earths. We get Old Lady Lois, punk rock robot-armed Lois, and even Lois Lane just for good measure. I'm actually pretty sure for like a minute there in the Golden Age, Lois actually did have a brother named Louis, but he got crisised out of existence, so if so, it's a fun reference. Our Lois and Jimmy get recruited by this group who are trying to hunt down Mixie and the missing Clark. What's super clever about this, though, is that for a good chunk of the episode, they leave it up in the air as who's actually telling the truth. The Loises seem good at first glance, but they're very clearly hiding a dark secret, which, as you should know by now, Lois absolutely hates secrets and has to uncover them. It's like a compulsion or something. Actually, this whole episode plays out like a really interesting character study for Lois herself, mainly as it seems that all these other Loises from all these other Earths have done way better with their lives in a much shorter amount of time, be it winning Pulitzer Prizes, going on amazing solo adventures, fixing their relationships with their fathers, and even getting Keyblades. No, seriously, look at this right now and tell me this isn't some sort of crazy Kingdom Hearts reference. Jimmy also gets to meet another version of himself too while on the Lois's ship, only this lady isn't obsessed with talking gorillas, she's obsessed with psychic horses. And yes, before you even have to ask, there is 100% a real psychic horse in DC Comics. His name is Comet, he was Supergirl's horse, it's a whole thing. Now, if not to save Lois, then what exactly did Mixie want Superman for? Well, to pull off a heist, of course, robbing the superhero museum of the far future, and oh man, this whole place is just filled wall to wall with Easter eggs, so let's count them, shall we? First up, we have what is clearly a mother box from New Genesis, a Thanagarian mace, though I can't exactly tell you if it's Hawkman or Hawkgirls from this angle. We have the Book of Eternity, a Green Lantern's lantern, as well as a Mr. Terrific T-Sphere. Then there's the Helmet of Fate belonging to Dr. Fate that almost smashes on the floor if Clark wasn't there to catch it. Then we got some sort of crystals. It's not kryptonite because it doesn't affect Clark. Maybe it's more Kryptonian crystal tech, or maybe it's some gems from Gemworld. There's also a couple that Mxyzptlk himself is sure to notice. There's Starman and Stargirl's cosmic staff, a Legion of Superheroes flight ring, and even Soul Taker Katana's sword. It's also right here during the heist we get our first in-universe mention of planet Krypton, and I kind of love the fact that Mxyzptlk, with his outsider knowledge, is just casually dropping these big what should be bombshell things to Clark, who has no precedent for any of it. Now, while this Superman might be a little slow on the uptake and maybe a little bit too trusting for his own good, he's certainly not dumb, and once he finds out that Mxyzptlk is up to no good, he tries to stop him, and while Mxyzptlk might be weakened, he's still able to play one last nasty trick, forcing Superman and the Loises into one final confrontation. And yes, you heard me right, I said confrontation. The Loises might be after Mxyzptlk, but they clearly have no problem hunting a Superman, judging by their kryptonite-powered weapons. Again, it's crazy to think that this is actually a show wherein Superman gets his first encounter with kryptonite in such a unique, outside-the-box kind of way. In fact, the kryptonite even affects him differently here than it does in the comics. He actually grows little crystals out of his skin. It's all very body horror. Mxyzptlk's main goal, as we learn, was always at the Lois' base of operation, and after he steals their ship, it's only Lois 12 who could stop him. And yes, that's right, I say 12, because as we learn in this episode, the planet that My Adventures with Superman takes place in is Earth 12. But wait, twist within a twist, Lois doesn't actually want to stop Mxyzptlk right away because she wants to go to the Lois' base too and find out whatever it is that they've been hiding from her, and Mxyzptlk is absolutely overjoyed at this, dubbing our Lois the Fun Lois. A Lois with so many trust issues she wouldn't even trust a team of her own multiversal counterparts not to lie to her. And you know what, I gotta say, the Lois' base of operations is a really cool visual history of all the different Loises from across canon. Superman normally gets all these touches to himself, but it's cool that they shared the love with Lois this time around. In a truly brilliant twist, we learn that Mxyzptlk's prize has always been his classic Golden Age bowler hat, one which when he puts it on his head unlocks his true Chaos God powers. Meaning that if Superman wants to win the day, he must join forces with all the other Loises to battle him. The fight itself here is absolutely stunning too, with some of the best choreography we've seen in the show yet. It also means that Clark has to go full tilt against a foe who can actually keep up with him beat for beat. Hats off too to the writers for never actually losing sight of Lois and Jimmy in these bigger, more chaotic, superpowered battles. They pull their weight and prove to be really useful in ways that they're just not in other stories. The intern trio just narrowly managed to escape the League of Loises with the help of Jimmy's flame bro, meaning that Clark and Lois can finally have their date, though it's implied that they might have just skipped a coffee, and considering how hot and heavy things were getting between the two back at the base, I don't think anyone could blame them. But wait, there's more. You see, Lois managed to escape the base with a special orb from the League of Loises, one that shows her more alternate Earths, specifically ones where Clark went to the dark side and was corrupted by his superpower. And as the episode comes to an end, Mxyzptlk implies to Lois that this might very well end up being one of those Earths. And so that was Kiss Kiss Fall into a Portal, and once again I love seeing My Adventures with Superman continue to level up in its storytelling. This episode also really opens up the universe as a whole. I know multiversal stories are all the rage at the moment and some people are getting bored by them, but I think this one found a really cool angle by making this story more about Lois and her questioning her place in the universe and her place next to Superman. Also, by straight up saying that this show takes place in Earth 12 and not the Prime Earth, that means they pretty much always have a fallback now for whenever they want to change something in the Superman mythos. Hey, it's not Prime Earth, it's Earth 12. It's also really fascinating to me as a longtime Superman fan who's read way too many Superman origin stories to see this show take a lot of really creative swings when it comes to moving things around that we take for granted, like kryptonite and where and when Clark learned about his alien heritage. Overall, just another deeply pleasing episode for a number of reasons. And you know what, that'll just about do it for me, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to subscribe to me here on YouTube, check me out on Twitter so you always know when a brand new video is about to drop, and I will see you all next week, everyone. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.